Newman thinks it's okay to turn his back and chat during a performance. David Farley thought it was acceptable to refer to Julia Gillard as an unproductive old cow. Have Australian men lost their manners? Or are they trying to get the message across that the place for the little lady is in the kitchen?
Katie Noonan, let's start with you.
Wow. That's great question. That's a fantastic question, Margaret. Obviously, you're referring to last week. I performed at an event and the Premier of my state chose to turn his back on our performance, and not only that, but talk throughout the whole performance and not clap. But for me, that wasn't a personal issue. It was more a matter of manners and respect for the arts. And, I'm worried that this symbolic movement of him turning his back on musicians, he was literally half a metre from my first violinist with his back to him the whole time.
He did so. His spokesperson said it was a cocktail party, people were standing up and lots of people were talking, and there was a queue of people to talk to him.
Absolutely, and I've performed at many events like that for Prime Ministers, Premiers, Senators of all parties, Greens, Independents, Labor and Liberal, and all of them at one point have taken the time to show some form of respect. I'm not, he's the Premier, he's there to do a lot of things, I understand that, he's got to talk to a lot of people, but I was worried that this behaviour, his turning his back, was a sign that he is indeed turning his back on the culture, the arts and the importance of arts in Queensland.
Just briefly to the other half of that question, and to put it into context, David Farley is the CEO of a cattle company. Unproductive old cow was his description, and it's obviously inspired this question. Your thoughts?
Well, I must say, when I made my comment, I didn't use any derogatory terms towards Mr Newman. In fact, I didn't even say his name. I just said the Premier of my state, and everyone figured it out. I think the minute that you use vulgar language and speak with this kind of schoolyard, I'd be ashamed if my children spoke like that. The strength of your argument is gone, and you're very, there's no room for it in the schoolyard. There's certainly no room for it in politics.
Let's go to George Brandis. Is the recent behaviour of Campbell Newman and David Farley evidence, as the question suggested, Australian men have lost their manners?
Well, I don't think it does, and I think it's very hard to generalise from two particular instances. In relation to on conversations while the music is being played, can I just say, though, I know Campbell Newman fairly well, and I know him to be a punctiliously courteous man. So I think perhaps you're being a little unfair to him on this occasion.
I've got to say this, you probably don't know Katie Noonan well enough, but I would suggest that she doesn't do incidental music.
If this was a concert performance in which all eyes were focused on the performers, wasn't it?
I agree, absolutely, it wasn't. But we were the featured act. We played for 15 minutes. We didn't, background music is like when you do the 45-minute set that so many musicians have done. It wasn't that. We were meant to be the featured act, showcasing some of the best musicians in Queensland, and he didn't really seem to care.
Let's broaden this, move around the panel. And Debbie Kilroy, the questioner asked whether the real message is the little lady should stay at home in the kitchen. You're a cattleman, or at least you understand the business pretty well.
What about we're storekeepers, actually, but I've always had cattle.
What about the idea of someone referring to the Prime Minister as unproductive?
That she was wearing a shit-eating grin, this sort of stuff, and LNP members of Parliament standing up on a truck with a big sign saying Julia Bob Brown's bitch is unedifying, but I don't single out blokes because there were two women there too, Sophie Mirabella and Bronwyn Bishop, and I think we should have a return to civility in the political discourse in this country.
Please. No, in the most important debate in Australian history, which was the debate over the fiduciary notes issue in the Depression, Ted Theodore never let out one single sentence of abuse. Every single attack that was made on him, he intelligently answered every single one of those things. Now, the Treasurers, and I've got to say,
I believe that I want to have a humane society that looks after minority groups, that respects the arts and music, and looks after minority groups like female prisoners in Townsville, looks after people with disability, looks after people that, I'm concerned that this current state government is really all about the bottom line. Of course, I understand the concerns about the economic situation, but somehow we have to find a balance between compassion and the economic bottom line, because society is more than dollars and cents. It's people, and it's music, and it's feelings, and it's compassion, and it's caring.
Okay, let's hear from Craig Emerson. And does it disturb you to hear a young woman like that talk so discouragingly, really, about the nature of politics and why would any young person want to be involved?
Yes, it does. I wonder whether it's because there's a minority government. Going back to the previous question, I wonder whether it's because there's a female Prime Minister. I don't want to be seen to be bawling about that, but I think it's part of the chemistry that it does seem to be game on. And the Geneva Convention's been torn up, take no prisoners, get in there. I'm one of the people who, on the Labor side, attacks Tony Abbott. I don't attack him in a personal way, but I certainly attack some of his characteristics. But I think it is a real problem, and I think there's an obligation on all of us to try to tidy all this up, clean it up, but you need a ceasefire in order for that to happen.
I find a frightening thing today is women in particular are being treated very badly in the public life, in the media. The media is being used as a weapon. Now, don't laugh, but that girl, Lara Bingle, okay, she's no mental giant. She was a public figure. She had her name, her naked image dragged through the media and the muck by a Neanderthal footballer. Her boyfriend ran a mile from it and didn't stand up for it, and they rewarded him with the captaincy of the Australian cricket team. There's something wrong here.
Yeah. Kate, I'll just get you to quickly respond to that. Now, you should make the point that I think the chap who was awarded with the Australian cricket team had nothing to do with that. This question comes from Lucas Bird.
Hi, my question to the panel this evening is about Queensland again. And in Queensland recently we've seen everything from the questionable Costello financial reports to jobs for the LNP boys, cuts to all sorts of services in Queensland. Should this really be what's happening in Queensland? Should this be a warning of what Candu is doing? Should this be...
Sorry, I didn't get your name. What's your name? Dan. I just wanted to say that some of the most beautiful parents I've ever seen have been same-sex parents, and some of the most together, compassionate, awesome little kids I've seen have been children of same-sex parents. And I'm ashamed of my state, and I believe that this is just another, what I was coming back to before, and that we have to somehow measure compassion somehow with the economic bottom line. And the problem with the current government is they're, anyway, we need to somehow find the balance between compassion and caring for our gay and lesbian community, prisoners, musicians, arts practitioners, music students who've just had their most program shut, which is a 30-year music education tradition in Queensland, gone. These are issues that are so important, and
yeah, I think it's just terrible. We have gone backwards by decades. We have a right to marry who we want to marry. If I want to marry a man or I want to marry a woman, I should have the right to do so, and government should not have a right to tell me what I can and can't do.
Getting married, the other thing is surrogacy, whether gay couples can actually...
We can talk on it, but, I mean, look, I get a farmer committing suicide every 4 days in Australia. I mean, manufacturing's gone in this country, agriculture is going in this country, mining is gone. Well, we've got quarrying now.
The wealth of the mining industry needs to be used to develop Queensland. This boom that we've got right now, it needs to be used to develop Queensland. When will somebody put in place policies that don't penalise the very areas that provide the wealth to Queensland? That's the question I'd like to ask.
Oh man, I don't really feel fully qualified to answer that question with enough information. Sorry.
Our very special thanks to this wonderful audience in the Brisbane Powerhouse. Please give yourselves a quick round of applause. Till next week's Q&A, good night.
You won't admit to it. It makes no sense.